What's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 13 of Liquid Life, featuring our first return guest and my business partner and stepfather, Jeff Casey.
Here you have the founders of Liquid Life Wellness Water.
Yes, we
sitting
are
in the same room.
in the same room. The room looks slightly different than the room we are usually podcasting in.
But we have to be, we're incognito because we are scoping out water supplies, water sources somewhere in the U.S.
Yes, we have to be incognito mode activated, do not disturb airplane mode. And so we are filming the most normcore episode of Liquid Life, like aesthetically, but also water-wise, because we've somehow managed to acquire all of these normcore waters in the past.
That are available at airports and convenience stores and gas stations.
And so we've acquired these waters. We weren't even planning on doing this. This just kind of happened. The fact that we have acquired these waters over the past 12 hours. Jeff flew in from Houston. I flew in from Los Angeles. I was like, we have to film a podcast. So here we are.
Here we are.
So we don't have any...
With very anonymous, in an anonymous location with anonymous waters.
Ooh, anonymous waters that literally everybody sees all of the time. And maybe we can talk about a little bit more about these waters. And of course, in the classic Preston fashion, while podcasting on the road, left the TDS meter at home.
Oh no!
So I did that for my.
We'll have to actually do this all by mouth feel and mouth taste.
Yeah, but I'm getting better at it, and I know some about these waters to begin with. So let's start. This is our first purified water on the show.
Aquafina.
Delicious.
There actually is in the counterculture universe, there is what would you call it? A belief, a theory, supposedly proven by science, that Aquafina has, of any commercially available water, has the lowest deuterium content. There's the idea that water below 150 is probably good for you and detoxes the body. Water above 150 parts per million of deuterium is bad. The deuterium in most surface waters in the world is around 158 to 175. And supposedly Aquafina, I don't know what their filtration process is, but they somehow get it down to an average of 130. Now, Aquafina, of course, is bottled at every Pepsi-Cola plant because it's owned by Pepsi-Cola. And so who knows, that may be different in every place. But there is that belief that Aquafina is actually low deuterium, which you can look up, DEUTERMIUM.
DEUTEURIUM, deuterium. That would be my spelling bee.
Which can be pronounced deuterium or deuterium. Either way is correct. Deuterium.
I'm going to go with deuterium.
Okay.
Yeah, well, give me that deuterium water. Should we taste test some Aquafina?
Yeah, let's taste some Aquafina. We've got a brand new bottle. This is the only one that's, I think, brand new right now.
Look, plastic and plastic. You know, the next Liquid Life Wellness Water business trip, we're flying first class, and we're going to not be sleeping in the same hotel room.
Yeah. We won't be filming in a hotel room. We'll be filming in a studio.
Cheers.
Okay, cheers.
But I kind of love this. I love the normcore hotel aesthetic with normcore waters. It tastes like water.
It tastes like water. It kind of tastes like good filtered water at a restaurant.
See, this is where Jeff and I kind of differ, is he loves kind of the science behind filtered water and the taste of filtered water and all these sorts of things. I'm like, I could honestly not care less about filtered water in those regards. But with what's happened to me recently with Mountain Valley, now I'm like, okay, I do see some more benefits and reasoning as to why investing in filtered systems.
Okay.
So there's a little inkling for me to care a bit more. To me, filtered water in a plastic bottle is just it's a no. You know, I'd much rather have living water in a plastic bottle than filtered water in a glass bottle.
It's kind of like drinking wine from a box. But in a pinch,
It'll do.
it'll do. Yeah,
And I
it'll
think
give you a heck of a hangover, but it'll do.
one thing that people kind of don't really understand or recognize is the filtered water you're drinking varies significantly in relation to the living water component of it, because all water is living water at some point in its life cycle. Right? And so these, local Pepsi bottling plants might be getting their municipal tap water that they're then filtering and turning off into Aquafina from a source, a tap water municipal source that actually has a much better original source.
And there are several sources in the U.S. that actually, several municipalities in the U.S. that do not use surface water, and they actually use partially or mostly or all well water. If they have a good well in a smaller town with a smaller water district, they're not all using surface water with all of the problems that entails. So we really have no idea what bottling plant this is from. I don't even know where we picked this up. Maybe it was here at the hotel.
It was here at the hotel.
Okay.
There's no way, I'm buying purified tap water in a plastic bottle, period. But it was here, and it kind of completed the little cycle.
And it was like a marimba too. So, completed the marimba, so we did it.
But, I think it's fun to kind of have these conversations because we haven't had a purified tap water mainstream kind of brand like this on the water show yet. Yeah. And to talk about this because most people have no idea the difference between buying an Aquafina bottle, a Smart Water bottle, which are both purified tap waters, versus a Fiji or Pellegrino or Evian, which in my opinion are some of, I don't want to say the worst, but let's say the most mainstream versions of living water. And they, of course, have their own challenges and such. But I would much prefer to buy one of these types of waters over a purified tap water, if at all possible. And like just going through the airport and seeing all the options, right? I first bought this Evian bottle of water. And Evian, we'll get into in a second, is a mineral spring water. I think its TDS is around 350. Actually, you want to Google that right now? What is the TDS of Evian?
TDS of Evian.
But the TDS of Aquafina, if I had to guess, it would probably be around 40 to 60. That's kind of the sweet spot for a lot of these reverse osmosis purified tap waters. And actually, if we look at the bottle, number one, refresh and recycle. The recycling myth on plastic. This is a marketing gimmick. You can actually tell the quality of plastic. So I'd much rather drink out of a thicker plastic like this plastic than this kind of
and especially recycled plastic. I frankly in my life don't really want anything recycled. I don't want recycled clothes. I don't want recycled plastic. I don't want recycled glass even. That's just a personal opinion.
And the recycled plastic actually leaches into your water significantly more quickly. And so the amount that these plastic bottles are actually getting recycled is significantly lower than you might believe or expect. And this was all part of basically consumer marketing in the mid 20th century, that these plastic companies basically decided, hey, let's put the burden on the consumer rather than the company, right? And so these companies are incentivized to make as much money as possible. And how do you do that? Plastic, much cheaper than glass. And the next version of plastic is actually aluminum, which is even worse than just plastic because you're getting the microplastics from the liner of the aluminum can. And then you're also getting that aluminum leaching into that water or beverage in many cases. On here it says purified by reverse osmosis. And this is just interesting to really become aware of what is it that you're actually putting into your body in a kind of most everyday sense of water, which most people kind of see almost as a commodity. And in some regards it is, but it also can be so much more. So, what is the TDS on the Evian?
Evian is 340.
Yeah, 350, I was close. And then can you actually look up the TDS of Aquafina?
I will.
What's your bet? What do you think?
I'd say probably about, I'd say probably in the 30, 37.
Okay. And of course it's going to vary a bit by bit. It is easier to control when you're using reverse osmosis as to what your TDS levels come out to. The main taste component I get from that Aquafina is actually a post-chlorine taste. I really have a bitterness in my mouth that echoes chlorine. And the other thing that I've noticed tasting more waters is the plastic bottles actually contribute a sweetness to the water. And I think a lot of people
great.
don't really recognize that. They like drinking out of plastic.
Yeah, xenoestrogens, because they want their body desires the xenoestrogens.
And does that have a sweetness to it?
Yeah, it probably does. Yeah, it's like women. That's sort of the female hormone, and that's what then they stick in our estrogen receptors are on. And men have them too, all over their body, and the xenoestrogens then stick to them and then cause these cells to start reacting and having all kinds of problems. But it says Aquafina. The only thing that Aquafina guarantees is it contains no more than 500 parts per million.
Which is a TDS of 500 milligrams per liter, which is that's a high mineral.
500
not high mineral,
ppm.
But that's a medium class mineral water.
Yeah. No.
Which,
But it just says that it contains no more than that. So
Yeah.
they have different bottling plants and different sources. So anywhere you drink Aquafina in the country is probably from a different source. So,
but I've never heard of an RO system that is 500. Your TDS would have to be 3,000,
Yeah, right,
5,000 to end up with a TDS of 500 after reverse osmosis.
well, maybe
filtration.
they don't do RO. I don't know if they do.
Well, it
or
says
not.
RO on the bottle.
Oh, it does. Well, then
I think
guess
they're
they
just
do.
covering their butt.
They're just covering their butt. Just say it's no more than 500. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe the plastic is so cheap that it leaches so much in after the RO. And the other thing to point out is that a lower mineral content water will actually dissolve whatever it's stored in quicker. And so when you buy these purified reverse osmosis low TDS waters, it's leaching those microplastics in significantly higher rate.
Yeah, and because there are radical molecules in it, they're negatively charged, and so they can pull those things out of the plastic. So anyway, yeah, but the Aquafina doesn't taste bad. It tastes like a good restaurant filtered water.
Delicious.
Delicious, yeah. Okay, now we're going to try a different one.
Habitas.
Habitas. It's owned by a company called USA Beverage.
USA Beverage.
I bought it in Houston. It says USA Beverage is located in Pennsylvania.
There's a lot of springs in Pennsylvania.
Okay, it does say natural artesian water.
Yeah.
So we take it that that's probably spring water. Unfortunately, we don't have a...
I've been seeing you drink there's so much Jeff backwash. Okay, no. Here, I want like the tiniest little sip. There's so much Jeff backwash in this.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I had this at the airport the whole day. So let's see.
Oh, God.
Plastic.
Yeah, here, you can have the rest of your...
No, I think I'll throw it away.
No, don't throw that away. You know?
Not the cup. I'm going to throw away the water.
Throw away the water.
We're in a hotel. We have a sink.
This is the first time in the show's history
We threw away a water. Okay, now we'll try the one that you have back flush in.
Yes, yeah. Then we're gonna try the Evian with the eye backwash.
The Evian.
Okay, but before we try that, let's talk about this. Why did you didn't want to drink my backwash after your backwash?
No, it didn't taste good. It tasted like plastic.
The water
tasted like plastic. It tasted like, I don't know if you burn plastic, that was the taste that I felt on my tongue.
But you really noticed it when we tasted it after the Aquafina.
After the Aquafina.
Because you've been drinking that all day, and there hasn't been a real issue of.
No, I didn't think it was great water, but it was what they had at the airport that I could get quickly at the little stand that I stopped with. I've noticed it in the airports now. Unfortunately, you really have no choice. There are three kinds of water, and that's it. Most of them are aluminum cans, and you have very limited choices. But obviously, what's happened at U.S. airports is a group has come in, and all the stores belong to the same company, or all the food distribution ones, and they all use the same distribution system. So it's really limited the choice. You used to have choice at different airports. There were some local waters, there were some sort of interesting things. But lately, traveling around the United States, they're all the same. They've all gone plain vanilla.
It is so fascinating, and this conversation comes up as we're working on launching our own beverage product, right? What do those distribution models look like? What do those relationships look like? And one thing I noticed today is Icelandic water. You know, the brand that has a cool iceberg.
Yeah.
You know, they're plastic. They're cool. I tend to steer clear if I have an option of a higher mineral content water, of glacier water, because it tends to be much lower TDS. And then lower TDS in the plastic bottle. Anyway, I think that the CEO of Icelandic Global and I have been chatting on Instagram, and I've invited him on the show, so we're kind of working out a date to kind of get his perspective. But from the little research I did, is he worked for Nestle for many years and is now, the CEO of this company. I don't know if exactly he started it, but he's a CEO. And so he had those relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to kind of see that benefit to working for Nestle play out in how he stocked in all of these airport vendors that I was walking by. But I ended up going with the Evian, which we'll get into now.
By the way, what's the new name of Nestle in North America?
Yeah, so we covered this in depth for the Mountain Valley review, but basically Nestle North America purchased Blue Triton in 2021. So Nestle North America is now Blue Triton.
Yeah.
Blue Triton recently merged with Primo Water. And so Primo Water was the owner of Mountain Valley. Now Mountain Valley is basically owned by Nestle. And what a perfect time to be launching Liquid Life Wellness Water. I just got a message. Mountain Valley has delayed and delayed and delayed. My second delivery since they were acquired and merged with Primo, and they changed distributors for literally the third time in 6 months. And late, pushing back my 5-gallon drum delivery. After my research, finding out that there's a significant amount of tap water in the Mountain Valley to begin with. Now I'm kind of just honestly done with them. Like, that I know Nestle is owners of, and then I get a message, hey, we're actually out of glass for the 5-gallon deliveries. Would you like plastic instead? And I'm like, now I'm getting part tap water in plastic. I'm good. I'm not paying this ridiculous amount of money. I'd rather just go buy Eternal spring water in the gallons and Alpine Crystal Geyser, for $1.69 a gallon, than pay all this crazy money to get glass plastic. Anyway, it's frustrating. It's like there's no great solution.
There's no great solution, and they all are being taken over by the same octopus.
Yep.
So, but there are two things about Icelandic water I would say. One is the deuterium.
Low deuterium.
Okay, because the theory is that the deuterium melts a little bit later than regular water. When the higher the deuterium content, it delays just very slightly. We're talking 100th of a degree. But the water that comes off the glaciers first tends to be lower in deuterium. However, they are glaciers, and I personally believe that they are spraying our skies with all kinds of crap. And
it's not a personal belief. You can literally see it in Los Angeles.
You can see it in Los Angeles.
And more and more non-tinfoil hat
it's becoming more in mainstream.
So many lawsuits about spraying aluminum in the sky. So if you want, like these brands doing rainwater, you really want to look into where in the heck is that rainwater actually coming from? Is it coming from a densely populated area where they're spraying all sorts of things in for all sorts of different reasons?
Like one of the worst that I've seen is Seattle rainwater that used to be sold at the airports, but it's not sold anymore. But that's the last water I would drink, to tell you the truth.
Yep.
Seattle rainwater, they spray up there all the time. They're spraying up above the clouds most of the time, but when it's a sunny day, they're spraying. And God only knows what comes down in the rainwater.
Yep.
So I would, if I were to do that, I would get I would reverse osmosis filter it before I would even think of drinking that.
Yeah, and the thing about the glacier water is it's typically around a 40 TDS on the higher end of things. And that deuterium, right, it's great for detoxing the body. There are aspects of a low TDS water if I want to detox, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Suck minerals out of your body.
Yes, and for me, when I'm traveling and the radiation and the dehydration that occurs from flying, I want to remineralize as quickly as possible through electrolyte powders, but through God's electrolyte powder, mineral water, right? And so that's why I went with the Evian. Now, the problem with Evian for me is it's really low in sodium. So it'll go through you. You'll be getting up to use the bathroom quite a bit if you don't have enough sodium. One of my travel hacks is I take some Himalayan pink sea salt, really doesn't matter, whatever salt, and I do a couple salt dabs before I get out the door so I'm not having pee every 5 minutes on the plane or traveling and all these sorts of things.
Okay, but not Morton salt because it has prussiate of Russia in it.
What is that?
It's a cancerous anti-caking agent that they put in the salt.
Wow.
So if you get a good sea salt, a good something pure, careful with the Morton salt.
And you can't even have Himalayan salt.
I can't have Himalayan salt because that's supposed to be bad for your kidneys because it has a lot of shale in it.
And that gives it kind of that pink color.
Yeah, that could be what gives the pink flecks.
And so you got the Celtic salt, or what was that?
The Muldoon.
The Fleur de Sal, the French.
Oh, the
salt.
French, yeah. Most of the Fleur de Sal.
Yeah.
So it's French and Spanish. The Fleur de Sal is the top layer, and it's one that's only 93% sodium chloride, and the rest is other minerals in it. So that's very rich in minerals. Now that may be contaminated too. I don't know. It might be just like the water because they're spraying over there too.
Yep. And you know, it's, to me, people are like, what should I be drinking? What should I, like, what? I don't want to say I'm as much of a water purist as some other health and wellness people on the internet, right? Like, I just had biscuits and sausage and gravy, right? Like, but to me, it's all about making small decisions over the period of time. Then you end up in what, you're 76 now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you look like Jeff, and he is not on any like prescription medications. He, you know, his blood sugar levels we were talking about, like, you're gonna end up looking like this if you make small changes. And the most basic element is water, right?
The most basic element is water. Now, if we move on to the Evian.
It won't be perfect, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Nothing is perfect.
I'm not going to try it because I just read the analysis.
What was the analysis?
It's got uranium, it's got barium, it's got just about everything you can imagine in it.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so I'm not going to drink the Evian. You can go ahead and try it if you want.
All right, we're going to try the Evian that I've been drinking all day. Okay, so what levels of uranium and barium?
Okay, it's low, but it should be 0 uranium. Let's see here, Evian. Let me look it up again.
Uranium.
Evian water. Okay, Mountain Valley, Evian natural spring water. I have to download this again.
Legitimately, I would rather drink trace levels of uranium and barium than purified tap water, if I'm being totally honest. This Evian, a lot of people don't like the taste of it. That's because it doesn't have really any sodium in this water, and it has a very high bicarbonate level, which is why I personally like it. I like that high bicarbonate level. Is it my favorite water on the market? Absolutely not. Based on the other options, which are mainly purified tap waters, I went with this in the airport.
Okay, we're going to see here. Okay, aluminum, 0.01 parts per million. Antimony, 0.0002. Arsenic, 0.001.
Oh boy.
Asbestos, 0.02. Amphibole fibers, which is part of the asbestos, 0.2.
Oh.
0.2 is pretty high.
0.2.
Asbestos.
Yeah, but micrograms per liter or milligrams?
0.2. Oh no, I'm sorry. Excuse me. No, it's not detected. It's not detected. It does have. Okay,
like,
the
oh my
antimony
God.
it does have. The limit for antimony, according to the EPA, is 0.0002. Evian has 0.0003.
Gotcha.
So it's actually over the recommended limit on that.
Wow.
Single fiber. No, let's see. Wait. Okay. Barium, 0.001 is the FDA recommended. 0.11.
That's how
That's
much
the
in
barium content. Yes.
Holy.
It's quite a bit.
Wow.
Okay. So anyway, I don't want to lead anyone astray, but let's look at cadmium. Not detected on cadmium. That's great.
Which is very common in paint pigments. Cadmium red, cadmium yellow, all these cadmiums. And yeah, there's so many toxins in the actual pigments that go into oil paint.
Now, it does have lots of calcium in it. 79.
Oh, that's great.
That's great. That probably is great.
Well, I'd rather get my calcium, honestly, from raw milk. That's where the majority of my calcium comes from these days.
And the magnesium is 27.
Yeah, that calcium to magnesium ratio really is typical for most waters on the market. I like a very high magnesium content water. and having that calcium, at least like I mean, ideally 4-5 to 1 magnesium to calcium to kind of make up for more calcium in our diets than magnesium. Pellegrino
Okay.
time, Jeff?
Pellegrino time, yeah.
Our favorite
Our
sparkling
favorite.
mineral water.
Sparkled through, or sparkled, filtered through graphene oxide, they say.
Don't you like drinking pencil?
Also owned by Nestle, by the way.
Yes, Pellegrino, very much owned by Nestle. Our probably favorite water conglomerate of them all.
Uh-huh. The one we love to bash. One that everybody seems to sell out to in the end.
Yep. So.
The last ones who paid $1 billion for a water company, right?
Yep. For Essentia back in 2021.
Uh-huh.
I do love the
Yeah.
light blue with the red and the green bottle. I think aesthetically it's absolutely incredible. This is really what sells water these days, are the aesthetics, what you think
Are
you're
they a
getting.
good label?
To me, it reads Wes Anderson. I'm a huge Wes Anderson fan. We went to the same high school. He was about, 15 years older than me or so. I ended up designing a whole fashion collection called St. John's based on the prep school we both went to. He made Rushmore about that experience growing up, going to that school. And I actually met him outside the Manil collection one day and shared that fashion collection with him. And he wrote me a very sweet note back. So every time I see Pellegrino, I think about Wes Anderson.
A friend.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Pellegrino.
It tastes good. It tastes very pure.
It is quite.
It's got a big bubble.
It's simultaneously sour, acidic, and basic. The first note is that of acidity. Don't you get that?
That's got a good mouthfeel.
And then the finish is that of the bicarbonate, which is interesting. It's actually not typical for mineral waters that I enjoy on a regular basis, because it kind of reads almost as a Topo Chico at first, but then it finishes as an Evian kind of level. I think there's probably low sodium in this as well. They, of course, do not put their content on here. Yeah, it is pretty low sodium for the TDS level. I think it's about 750 milligrams per liter for Pellegrino.
Okay.
And there's 20 milligrams per liter in this actual bottle, which is low, which is kind of why that taste isn't necessarily there for me. And it says calcium, there's 120 milligrams. I hate that the really only two percentages you have to have on most labels.
Yeah, those labels.
Sodium and calcium levels.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest, sure, I'm interested in those. Much more interested personally in the magnesium levels and the potassium levels.
Yeah.
Those are more interesting and tend to vary more than the calcium and sodium levels. But they definitely filter this water.
Oh, I'm sure they do. Yeah. They do. They do.
And there's just not many regulations on. Well, there's regulations and there's definitions of spring water, of mineral water, and what you can actually do to these waters, but there isn't much oversight. And this is what I've been finding out as I'm doing deeper dives on these big water companies like Mountain Valley, and we just did a deep dive on Saratoga. Saratoga, you would think, comes from Saratoga Springs in upstate New York.
Yeah.
It does not. I haven't even told you this. We haven't talked since I did that video. I don't know if you've watched that video yet, but it comes from 3 different sources. The first is in Maine, which is this spring source. Guess who owns that source? Nestle. Okay. Second source in Pennsylvania. Guess who owns that source? Nestle. The third source is called a spring. It's called Nature's Way Springs. It is a co-packing facility. And I had a sneaking suspicion, just looking at their numbers on their water reports that they published, that they're adding tap water to this water based on everything that I'm kind of seeing, these patterns. Well, it turns out the third source for the water that they call springs is a co-packing facility. Where they're taking Scranton, Pennsylvania tap water and putting it into the water. And then they call it Saratoga spring water. And I think that these companies can get away with calling it done in a Mountain Valley spring water, because if you trademark Mountain Valley spring water, it doesn't actually have to be spring water, which means it comes from a borehole. There's no way they're producing the quantity of these waters that spring water naturally flows to the surface. There's only one Actual true by the definition spring water supplier I'm aware of, and they're also actually in Maine. And that's how Mother Earth naturally pumps out a certain level of gallons per minute, which is not high. There's no way you can be selling
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of bottles like these companies are and have Mother Earth just pump it out naturally. You have to pump it out.
Yeah.
And it's not coming just through a borehole. They have to go deeper than that. And then these big water companies are supplementing with
Surface
tap
water. Surface water and adding back minerals, adding back calcium, which may or may not be a good thing. You got to have the calcium has to be balanced with magnesium because
Yeah.
it can do kidney stones and stuff can start to
Yes.
form if you drink too high a calcium water.
Yes. And most mineral waters, most waters on the market have such high levels of calcium and such low levels of magnesium in
Yeah.
relativity.
Yeah.
And we just don't get the magnesium from our diets anymore.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah,
Okay.
Pellegrino.
But this water is nice to drink.
You know what? I was at Trader Joe's, and I say all of that in the same time. I bought 2 bottles of Pellegrino recently because I was at Trader Joe's where I get my Gerolsteiner. And I don't know from the content we've been producing or other people just finding out, but Gerolsteiner is my favorite commercially available
1800
water.
TDS, right?
Yes, super high. It has an incredible bubble, mouthfeel. In the U.S., we get the highest carbonation level. It's the 4th one. In Germany, they have multiple levels and layers of the Gerolsteiner, but it's just such an amazing balanced water. I wish the magnesium content was higher. It has 1,300 milligrams per liter of bicarbonate alone.
Wow.
At least that's what it's marketed as.
Wow.
But anyway, they didn't have Gerolsteiner at Trader Joe's.
So you had to get Pellegrino.
So I got 2 bottles of Pellegrino. I was like, it's not the same. It does not hit the same. But it'll do in a pinch.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it'll do in a pinch. It's good tasting.
see, I don't think it's good tasting. I think
No.
it looks pretty and it's like fun to hold the bottle, but it ain't my favorite. Sodium really adds that taste.
Uh-huh.
All right, now Fiji.
Low in everything, I believe. It's a volcanic spring water.
This has a TDS around 233 milligrams.
Oh, it
per
does.
liter.
Okay.
So it's right under a mineral water, which is actually interesting for volcanic water. The other part of me thinks that that is actually mainly the microplastics in the in the water
Maybe
because it comes from Fiji all the way to the United States, and that's a long way to travel in those shipping
to
containers.
travel. But isn't it bottled here? So it's probably bought in ISO containers.
Is it bottled in the U.S.?
I believe it's bottled in the U.S. I don't think
Let's
it's bottled
look.
in.
Bottled at source.
Oh, bottled at the source.
Yakara Viti Livu, Fiji Islands. Bottled by Natural Waters of VT Limited. Dang, I'm good. 222 milligrams per liter.
Yeah, that's very good.
I said 223.
Way to go. Okay.
We're getting good at this. Silica, 93 milligrams per liter, and the silica is super high because it's a volcanic water.
Yeah.
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 I love the silica in water. It gives it a smooth mouthfeel. Also, that will happen from the microplastics. And there's
Oh.
a sense of sweetness that comes from that silica
Okay.
and the plastic. The calcium, 18 milligrams per liter. Magnesium, 15 milligrams per liter.
5-0?
15.
Oh, 15.
Which is
1-5.
interesting because that's almost a 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's,
But it's fairly low, but it is 1-to-1.
I would prefer that than, a 5 calcium to 1 magnesium ratio.
But this
pH.
one's silica is the main thing. So good for your hair, good for your nails, good for your teeth.
And then it's saying that the bicarbonate is 152 milligrams per liter, which makes up for the most of the actual TDS. The problem with Fiji is, according to Oasis, whose numbers I disagree with, I find out that the numbers don't add up a lot of time. They say that there's high levels of arsenic in this water relative to whatever limits they're testing. But there, we talked about this on our show last time around arsenic, and there actually being research around it potentially killing cancer cells.
That it may actually be, at very low levels, it may actually kill cancer cells. Kills cancer cells first before it kills the other cells.
Now, put a gun to my head and make me choose one plastic water bottle mainstream option to drink. I'm going with Fiji. What are you going with?
Yeah, I go to Fiji. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And why Fiji for you?
Because it just has a good mouthfeel, and I like the silica idea.
Yeah.
So, because hair, skin, nails, that's all silica-related stuff. As long as you have enough other vitamins, I think you have to have enough vitamin D and enough vitamin K or something to be able to absorb it. Mm-hmm. But if you have that, That's kind of, I think, what I like about it. But also, it's the coldest one that we have here.
and
And it's
so
kind of warm outside.
yeah.
And so it tastes really good right now.
And so the actual temperature of the water does affect the taste. So your
Hmm.
taste buds work a lot better if it's warm. So
Hmm.
to get the full experience, the full taste of a water, drink it at room temperature.
Now, I would be a little concerned about from Fiji, that's the southern hemisphere. The ship has to come all the way, it's loaded in a container.
Yep.
Those containers can get really hot
Yep.
inside unless they're refrigerated containers, which I
Yep.
kind of doubt
Hell
because the
no.
shipping cost is 3 times higher if they're refrigerated
No way
containers.
they're shipping
Yeah,
these
refrigerated
in.
containers.
Yeah.
So that is a little. I had never really realized that. I assumed always that they brought it in ISO containers, which is not necessarily a good thing either because they have all kinds of coatings on the
Yep.
inside of the tank, and then bottled it here in the U.S. But I see it's bottled at source, so that means it's coming in the plastic bottle on a 30-day voyage from Fiji into the port of Long Beach and then being distributed throughout the U.S. So it spends a lot of time in agitation and contact with the plastic.
The good thing is that it is
Good quality
probably
plastic, yeah.
probably 2 times thicker than the Aquafina.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just.
And it's not recycled plastic. It doesn't say
Let's
recycled
see.
plastic on it,
Let's
does it?
see. It just has an electrolyte symbol. I've actually never noticed electrolytes with a big E. That's hilarious. It says BPA free. Please recycle. Yeah, it looks like this is not recycled
Virgin
plastic.
virgin plastic. Okay.
Yep. Um, so I understand Jeff's sentiment around the not wanting recycled really anything in
But
your
especially
body.
recycled plastics. Glass is heated to extreme temperatures, and
Yes.
you would think that anything that is in there has been
Yeah.
pretty well destroyed, and the glass doesn't absorb any of those things to begin with,
Yeah.
whereas the plastics absorb all kinds of things from
Yeah.
whatever is inside of them.
Yep. And through some of the conversations I've been having with people, they're like, "Are you going to reuse your glass bottles? Are you going to wash them?" And one of my friends was talking about one of his first jobs at a bottle washing facility and just how absolutely disgusting those bottles were, and that he would literally never drink out of a reused glass bottle. Then I think about the friend of the pod and our mutual water obsessed friend, the bearded water sommelier, who I don't know if Jeff is aware of, but he has his own brand in the UK called Crag Spring Water. And part of his business model is actually washing and recycling and reusing these glass bottles. And it's a very common practice in Germany and
Uh-huh.
other countries where these big water companies actually all share the same bottles. What they do is they have bottle deposits where you go, put back your glass. You get a very significant discount on the water, and then these bottling facilities will just bottle different water sources in the same bottles and then have a different label on there. So
Oh.
you'll see the bottles in Germany actually have these kind of like white lines around them. It's because different labels have been taken off and reapplied.
Oh,
and taken
really?
off and
Okay.
reapplied.
I didn't know that.
So that I'm like definitely more cool with than the recycled plastic
Yeah.
as well.
Okay. Also, with glass, it would be nice if they would break it up, melt it down, and remold it.
100%.
That would be fine. I really don't want to drink out of a recycled glass bottle at all. Milk bottles, they make us recycle. Well, they don't make us recycle them, but they charge a $3 deposit for the bottle.
Yep.
And so you almost have to. And that has cream in it, and it lasts for 2 to 3 weeks. And by the time even if you put it through the dishwasher, which most people don't, most people just take it back to the store dirty, that stuff is so baked on to the side of that
It's
glass
disgusting.
that it's very difficult to get out. So I would think I want my stuff in new bottles.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on remelting it down or returning it to Mother Earth,
Uh-huh.
right? And doing that once a year, recycling it that way in the purest form. On the recycling the glass note, we bought raw milk from Lassen's in their glass jugs 6, 7, 8 months ago or so. And they've been just sitting at the back of our fridge, of course, empty, for
Uh-huh.
the past 6 months about. And we started shopping at Lassen's again recently. Go to Sprouts one week, Lassen's the next week. And finally, I remembered to bring the empty bottles, and it was $3 per, and you had to create a new account, to do
Yeah.
it. But I was looking at them as I was returning them. We'd put them through the dishwasher, wash them out, and everything. I'm like, these are so dirty.
Yeah. And it doesn't come off after a while. It's
Yeah.
baked on. So I don't know. Maybe they're washing them better at the
In Germany.
in Germany. Yeah, maybe they're washing them better in Germany.
Yeah. But it's interesting, right? Like, what is that incentive? As someone who even works in the space is interested in this, it still took me 6 months to even remember. It's not part of
To
our
recycle.
culture, right? And it's just not part of our consumer habits, right?
Yeah.
So how do we kind of change that? How do we push the ball forward? Is that even necessary? Like, how do we get innovative as people creating a new bottled water company in the recycling regards? Because it really is a marketing myth in about 95% of cases.
Well, when I was a mere child, many decades ago, I remember that we would ride down our bikes down to the store and buy a 7-Up, and the 7-Up was 10 cents, and the deposit was 5, and so we would usually drink it right there and get our 5 cents back. Well, today the bottle is $1.50, and the deposit is still 5 cents.
Yes,
and
that's what I talk about with the incentives. And $1.50. I mean, this Fiji at the store was $3.99, right? I mean, I don't think there's even. Okay, here it is. California, 5 cents.
5 cents.
Still
Okay.
5 cents. If there was a $2 return,
Yeah.
that would be people's jobs.
You would do it, but the deposit has stayed the same. It's never gone up. I'm sure that's lobbying by the
100%.
soda companies that are mostly Coca-Cola and Pepsi are probably mostly behind that. But
as people who love the oil and gas industries, Jeff has been working there. It's definitely lobbying from the petrochemical side also, because if more people are returning them, we're producing less bottles.
Then we're gonna have more recycled plastic. Now, recycled plastic is probably good making rugs and stuff. They do make rugs out of it. I would never use it to make clothing. For Christmas, I got a bunch of clothes. They were actually given to me because they didn't fit the person they were originally intended for, and they said they were made with recycled plastic. And I was like, I don't want to put this on my body.
Yeah.
So I still have them. I'm not sure what to do with them.
I actually just gave away, donated some T-shirts that had exactly that in
recycled
them.
plastic.
I'm like, I don't want any polyester on my body if at all possible. Now I say that my shoes are basically all polyester plastic. My socks are a high percentage polyester for sure. There's some cotton in here. These pants, 100% polyester. But the underwear, 100% cotton.
Okay.
The shirt, that's cotton. The jacket, But again, it's like our water, right? Like, do one small step to move the ball forward at least. And if I could, I would just be dripped out and all in and everything, full grounding, but shoes, but doesn't really work.
Well, that's the next thing to take up after water is grounding shoes. I was thinking about in tennis shoes if maybe we could infuse copper wires through them so that you're actually grounded when you are walking in these shoes.
Yeah, we get through TSA and go.
That's the problem. Yeah, and then unless you step on an electric cable. So yeah, electricians can still get regular ones, but so it's supposed to be so important to ground.
Yes.
And everybody's shoes now are made with these poly, whatever they are. They're not rubber, but whatever these soles are that are totally insulating. So you are absolutely isolated from the electrical current of the earth.
Yep.
The earthing value of whatever that is of being in contact with the earth. So I'd like to do that. I had a dream about it actually, about making shoes that you can be grounded with. Just don't go around and step on electrical wires.
I have the vision now. We could call it Liquid Life Wellness Walkers.
Okay. and we'll do co-sponsoring with Walking in Water.
Beautiful. Yeah, you could walk on water with
You
shoes.
walk on water with these
Because
shoes.
you got electrocuted so bad. You're fully radioactive.
We'll shock the swamp and see what happens.
Oh,
okay.
All right, well, I think that wraps it up for the most normcore episode of Liquid Life Wellness Water yet. If you would have told me I'm going to have Aquafina on the show, I would have said you're crazy.
We only did one glass bottle, didn't we?
Yeah. This
Wow.
is a record.
We had a plastic critique session here.
But these are great conversations to have, because if I just, without my AI sense and, the actual numbers, I would say that probably 90% of the water is consumed through plastic.
Through plastic, yeah.
Single-use bottles. I would say probably 7% is aluminum. And then I would say 3% is glass.
Yeah.
If I had to just wild guess. So we'll see. I'll check out those numbers in a bit. But.
Yeah. And we recycle in where we live. And when you think that the world uses over 1 billion plastic bottles a day, you think what a futile effort that is to recycle the little bit of stuff that we take out and put on the curb once a week.
Yeah, and that's more for us to feel better about
That's for us to feel better,
get a little pat on the back, because what happens when you can watch all these recycling documentaries and go down those rabbit holes, as we did as we were thinking about these products. And both of us actually, as we got in the rental car today, were like, I think it might be okay to sell our water in
plastic bottle
in certain cases,
because logistically the glass has got a lot of limitations.
It's not legally allowed to be sold in so many places, and the water that we're actually sourcing is a higher TDS water, probably around 400, so it'll be a mineral water, so it absorbs plastic less. And then focusing on a Fiji kind of BPA free, thick, real actual quality plastic,
virgin plastic,
but it's not going for 45 days in a super hot shipping container. Have it much more locally produced and distributed, and be real intentional about that. I think that there is a point to be made. I will drink out of a plastic bottle any day over an aluminum can.
Yeah.
So personally, I'm much more okay with it, but focusing on the glass is number one priority. 100% is the move. Yeah. And maybe we'll see, technology is changing so much in the data sense. I think that will actually significantly impact the future of how we actually produce CPG brands from every level, and innovating on a material level, which these organic plastics are just completely unable to do at the moment, because you end up having these plastics that leach so many more harmful chemicals than plastic by itself.
Yeah. Recycled plastic. Avoid it at all costs.
Cheers.
Okay.
With our plastic cups.
With our plastic cups. Recycled, I'm sure.
These are, these are something else. So anyway, thank y'all so much for
taste that plastic.
And we will see y'all in the next one. Cheers.